Hello, I'm VinzerFlinn, and this is the Book of Flinn, where we are watching the season finale of Clone Wars and Buffy, and this week we're going to focus on the double finale of Clone Wars, and to help me go through it is a Star Wars assassin that's even stabbier than an Ewok. It's Reigna Flinn.
Stab, stab. I do enjoy the stab. I have a lot of feelings about Star Wars this week. We just finished watching Andor.
Right.
I don't want to talk about it, but I want to schedule a talk about it if anybody wants to write in.
Maybe we should do a little Andor special and maybe give it another week for all the spoilers to get out, and then we can... I'd love to talk about Andor.
Yeah, and if anybody has any thoughts that they have on it, because I have lots of thoughts on it, it's good. Go watch it.
I posted that if you're still down with the Empire after watching season 2 of Andor, well, there's just no helping you.
Yeah.
Well, before we do that, though, we got to finish off season 2 of Clone Wars here. You ready to jump in?
I guess.
That's the spirit.
I guess. Honestly, it's not a bad episode. Season 2, episode 21. R2 come home. Adversity is a friendship's truest test. My prediction is that R2 is going to go on a bike ride while wearing a sheet with a boy who's dressed as Little Red Riding Hoodie. Because of the ET come home. ET phone home. I'd predict something.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta come up with something silly.
This would have made for a better movie with R2 in E.T.'s place. However, R2's scream in E.T.'s body would be a terrifying experience.
Yeah, like E.T. wasn't scary enough.
Exactly. When we recap, it's just a summary of the last episode with Baby Boba failing to take out Windu and is currently with Aura Singh on the fire spray. Meanwhile, the Jedi cruiser, along with Admiral Killian, are plummeting towards the planet, attempting to land it Skywalker style, aka crash it with style. The Republic rescue ship joins the Jedi in search for survivors. Captain Boba is informing Mace that the last of the survivors are being picked up, but they need to head straight to the hospital, and Mace is like, alright, we'll contact you as soon as we finish our search for the Admiral. And I'm like, wait, does that mean that they have critically injured people on board? And they're like, hole up while we do a planet-wide search for the ship.
It seemed to me like they sent the ambulance away before they confirmed that there weren't any more survivors. Like, you know, what if they found the Admiral and he's missing an arm but still alive? Like, oh shit, we sent the medical ship away.
R2 is with Skywalker. As Skywalker gives the command to head to the surface, they approach the crash cruiser and hope that the command team survive the crash, but it looks like a large smoldering pile of coals, so I'm not super hopeful. They comment that the bridge looks intact, so they're still hopeful. They land nearby the wreckage, and this ship is huge. I was wondering if it might be smarter to, like, hover nearby or something and just kind of, like, hop into the window, hop back out, but whatever.
Yeah, even a Venator class Star Destroyer is gigantic, and when he said set down, like, we're gonna walk to it, I'm like, I hope you got climbing gear. Like, it's very big. It'd be like climbing up an office building on fire. That's sideways.
Exactly. Skywalker and R2 were agreeing that the place feels weird, and less awesome Nick Fury, which I'm calling him this episode, Mace Windu, he scoffs at R2 for having feelings, but Skywalker's like, it's a special case. And then less awesome Nick Fury doubles down that Skywalker doesn't treat his droid appropriately.
I'm convinced R2 said, go fuck yourself, Windu, and those beep boops afterwards.
Yeah, I was just waiting for Baby Boba to jump out of the smoke and cut his head off already. R2 beeps and boops, and I'm assuming he's encouraging Mace on where he can stick his lightsaber because it ends with a fart noise. They all proceed towards the wreckage, and Space Fury, orders his unit R8, who I called R2 cubed. A little math humor for you there. To check for signs of life and to look for an entry point to the ship. And R2's like, this doesn't look good, man, which Skywalker agrees. That was more swear words, though. Immediately, they're proven right with two somethings. They look like weird, something you'd see in like a Hellboy episode or something. It's weird.
These are Gundarks, which have been around Star Wars for a while, though we heard about them before we saw them. They're first mentioned in Empire Strikes Back when Han goes to see Luke after he gets back in from the cold, and he says, "You don't look so bad to me, you look strong enough to pull the ears off a Gundark." And then they had to invent what Gundarks looked like, these four-arm monsters. So there you go. Here's your Star Wars trivia today.
I misheard them, so when I start hearing what I thought they were called, I'll start calling them that. But I did not hear Gundarks. Let's just put it that way. R2's getting mad heebie-jeebies, and he tries to alert the others, and he's really cute how he does this little panic thing. He steals the episode for this entire... This is like if Grizzo has a standalone episode in any show that's done of yours.
Hopefully someday he will.
Exactly. Space Fury, who's supposedly filled with the Force, senses nothing and doubles down and insults R2. But Skywalker knows better, but he continues on with the others. As R2 begrudgingly goes to roll after them, two beasts hop out and start sneaking up to catch up to them. Skywalker and Space Fury are casually hypothesizing about the size of the commander crew, and how do they not know how many people they're looking for? Wouldn't they have a roster? This seems really weird.
I know Anakin don't got time to read that shit, but do you think Windu would be a little more clued in?
All right. Inside the ship, R2 points to a dead clone trooper, and Mace is like, he survived the crash, but he died by execution. And as they start noticing more clone troopers around, it's the same thing. There's all like a shot to the chest. They think it might be the assassins that were trying to take out Space Fury, doubling back for him in the wreck, and they send the droids off to scan the ship while they head to the bridge. Skywalker and R2 have a nice little silent moment before he heads off, like kind of like, all right, go on, boy. Which I guess it's okay that Skywalker is nicer to droids than he is to pretty much anyone else, including his own Padawan. Team Jedi reaches the bridge in record time. Maybe they found a functioning elevator, or they forced their way up a Jeffrey's tube, or whatever they call it in the Star Wars world. I was raised on Star Trek, man. I don't know what they're called.
I don't know if they have a comparable name in Star Wars, but I think that's one of those things we can all agree on. Yeah, it's just a Jeffrey's tube.
Yeah, maybe they forced their way up the shaft, who knows. They find more executed command staff. They don't say Killian or Commander Pons, and they report back to the rescue ship that's still hanging around full of injured clone troopers instead of heading to the medical center. But I get your point where it's like, wait around for somebody. They just assumed that they were sucked out instead of thinking that maybe they were taken by the people who executed everybody else. I don't know. It seems like a weird theory for them to have. Space Fury tells the rescue ship to head to the medical center and they'll meet up there. So the captain of the rescue ship is Captain Subaru. What? Did you catch his...
Didn't catch it.
Okay. At the crashed cruiser, we see droid hijinks. Instead of bingo droids being Harry and Marv, we've got R2 and R2 cubed clanging off each other. That was weird that they just ran into each other. It seemed odd. A record amount of swearing in this scene. Let's make up some lines. What is wrong? There's something effing following us. There's nothing on the set. Turn the F around. And then you just see them screaming and running away.
You can tell which one R2 is in that equation.
Yeah, exactly. They are sounding all the alarms as they roll away, but the beasts easily cut them off. These things are huge. Like the size of moose. Or bigger, probably. One of them gets R2 cubed and another starts fighting over him, and R2 quite literally pokes one of them in the butt.
Now, did you catch the sound effect when he hit him? It was very easy to miss. I almost missed it, but it went like doing. It was like a little pin sound.
I did catch that, but yeah, it was enough for that and the shocked look on the beast's face. You got what was going on. He gets backhanded into a column for his efforts, and he watches helplessly as R2 Cubed is destroyed. Rest in peace. And like the head rolls right over to him, and he's looking him in the eye, and I'm like, R8 didn't deserve that ending. Poor R2 needs a lot of therapy. On the bridge, they're taking in all of the dead crew, but on a ledge nearby sits a blue and white Mandalorian helmet. For first second, I went, wait a minute.
Yeah, me too. I was like, what?
The first few digits of your lawyer's number is drawn out as it gets closer. Skywalker is sharing in our confusion as he points to the Mando helmet. Meanwhile, with R2, the beasts are closing in, and I don't even understand why they're bothering. It's not like they're a food source. I don't understand the motivation of these beasts.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the habits of Gundarks actually are. Maybe they just like to wreck stuff. I don't know.
R2 writes himself, and he's assessing, and he's like, and as he does that, Skywalker is cautiously approaching the helmet and still confused as to why it's here. Space Fury's wheels begin to turn, and somehow seeing the helmet makes him think of the cadet, which makes him think of Jango, and then Boba. Do you buy this thought process? This
Nope.
seemed really plot magic.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering if it was as clunky as it was coming across to me. But at least we got to discover another Boba trap.
It might have made more sense as if they'd taken some time to establish that Mace remembered and maybe even regretted what he did to Jango, but there's none of that shit. That would at least made sense from a writing perspective. He just sort of plot connects the dots.
Yeah, he's like, cadets. And that's where he lost me. Like, I'm like, you can't look at Mando helmet and think cadets. I'm sorry, but you don't have enough there. That wasn't established in the last episode. Was it?
I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I don't remember that. I don't know. It still seemed convenient.
Did they establish that it was Boba who was sabotaging the ship?
Not specifically by name. I think they figured out that it was... Well, they figured out that it was Lucky, I think, right? Like the cadets would have at least reported that, but I don't know. It still seems very disjointed. There's no clear moment to the viewer where we should realize how Mace makes that connection. It just sort of happens.
Yeah. Well, after the plot magic happens, Skywalker goes to pick up the helmet, and Space Fury yells for him to stop. Fury force pulls Skywalker back as the helmet explodes. And I hate to say it, but Space Fury could have saved a lot of people.
Yeah, himself included.
Yeah, exactly, if he had just not. As the bridge explodes, back to R2, it causes parts of the ship to crumble and fall, so it's forcing the beasts to flee. Only one of them makes it out. And R2 is cursing and panicking and squirting oil, and we see that one of the creatures did not make it. We see a different scene, and we're looking at the whole thing from the outside, from the space binoculars, and it's Boba. He's looking and watching as the bridge explodes, and Aura declares that Mace Windu is definitely dead. Is he, though? Which is why I go on to say, Boba rightfully wants to make sure he's dead, but he's so filled with rage that when he expresses this idea, he just sounds like a tantruming toddler. His delivery is not what he needs it to be, because logically, it's sound, but...
The constant look on his face is not helping either. He just looks like a really angry, petulant child.
Yeah, he's just kind of like, no, but I want it. Aura insists that there's nothing left to find, and one of the other hunters, who looks like an upright reptilian bulldog, wants to get out. The Trandoshan... Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yes, I got a species. He doesn't say anything. Bulldog goes on to say that the planet's crawling with gun dogs.
Gun dog. Okay. That's forgivable.
So that's what I called them, gun dogs, for the rest of the episode. GUNDAWGS, as in gun dogs. And besides, he also doesn't want to have the hassle of traveling with all these hostages. And sure enough, just as I thought, there's Pons, Killian, and some other guy. Who is that? Do we know who that is?
I don't think they said his name once. It was almost like Snyder in the Buffy episode, just like Pons and the other one.
Bulldog doesn't think it's worth risking it to take them, and Boba's like, you haven't actually even done anything yet. I'm the one who's done everything so far, so how about you back off? And Aura intervenes as they start to fight. Boba names their financier, Count Dooku, and I got really excited. I thought we were going to see Count Chocula before the end of this episode was out. I was wrong. They might get a payout if they bring back his head. Double if we get Skywalkers. So they're going to go off and grab proof.
Yeah, I think Dooku would pay a few bucks for that.
It's better than being chained to them last season. R2's still wandering around the wreckage, figuring out what's he going to do, and he tries to find a shaft he can fly into. He lands on the bridge, and he's looking for Skywalker or Fury, and Skywalker just pitifully calls out to R2, who doesn't look good. Fury's still unconscious, and they're trapped under a lot of debris which cannot be moved, so he sends R2 back to the ship to call for help. But R2 doesn't want to leave him. He makes the saddest little sound. Sorry, I'm going to be a mess. I'm Team R2 this entire episode. I'm always Team R2. The other team, Team Bounty, Boba almost gets flattened immediately as he rushes into this crumbling structure. And Aura's just an absent-minded parent because she's like, careful. I enjoyed that energy. R2 starts some Home Alone hijinks and starts pushing sheets of metal down the hallway at them.
I had the same thought. I was like, this is a Home Alone shit right here.
As soon as he looked out the window and he saw the swoop bikes approaching, I'm like, oh man, he's gonna start, like, setting his own traps. Aura just thinks that the door malfunctioned because suddenly the door closes as they approach the bridge, and R2's actually just giggling maniacally on the other side of the door.
Yeah, no subtitles needed for that.
He's thoroughly enjoying himself despite Skywalker's current medical state. Speaking of, Space Fury starting to stir, and Skywalker tells him he's pinned. Fury's like, oh yeah, me too. He spins perfectly underneath his sheets of metal. There's room for that man to just slide right out. I am so angry at him for the rest of this episode.
I have multiple problems with this whole part of this. That, for one, you're going to tell me that they'd have to be dead to not be able to somehow escape. And then they do this. I had the same problem in Mandalorian, where he's like, go to another planet and get help, which is going to be at least a few hours, if not a day away. Like, it doesn't make sense. You're on your own. Like, yeah, go get help. And I'm not even going to get going on it. It'd be like me getting pinned under something here and going, go to Toronto in a car and get help. See you in 48 hours. Well, I'll be dead. Like, come on.
Right.
All right, I'm done.
I'm just mad that Fury's spinning like a rotisserie chicken in underneath of this thing, and Skywalker's actually flattened like a pancake, but Fury's like, yeah, I'm stuck too.
Fury's like, I can't get comfortable.
R2 spots the bounty hunters coming up the same tube that he ascended earlier, and I swear I would not have been surprised if a box of tools or a paint can just suddenly went flying down the tube.
I was waiting for that.
Sure enough, R2 brings back 3 crates to drop on top from the top of the tube, and he's humming idly, and he goes. I love his energy here. But he still misses the 3 of them. Bulldog's just like, oh, they leave. Like, we need to leave. We should just go. This place is falling apart around us, because they don't realize it's just a droid just dropping stuff on them from the top floor. And Boba's like, I'm not going to rest until I have the head of my father's murderer. R2 spots a fallen clone trooper, and for a split second, I really thought that we were going to cut to him falling down, being thrown down the shaft. I'm very glad that did not happen, but I wouldn't have been surprised if that's what we cut to, considering he'd been pitching stuff down there. And he finds a tube on the back of the clone trooper. Is that a grenade or something? He drops it down, and it blasts the three of them back, so I figure it's like a grenade. Skywalker and Fury attribute all the sounds of destruction to the ship breaking apart around them, rather than the madness of R2 in the background. Sorry, this was probably my favorite part of the episode, was all just the hijinks of R2 just owning everybody around him. I always enjoy that. Team Bounty, Bulldog is done almost dying to collect a head, and Aura finally is like, alright, Castus, finally names Bulldog. And goes on to agree with Castus and like, sorry, Boba, but we're done, like, we got it. Then she just casually grows an antenna, and I'm sorry, that was unsettling.
That thing coming out of Aura Singh's head has been there the whole time. It is actually part of her look.
Oh, okay, that's...
Yeah, it's weird. There's an explanation on why she has it and stuff, but it's been part of her look since her cameo appearance in episode 1. She did actually have a live-action appearance during the pod race for a split second.
We cut over to Skywalker getting antsy, and Space Fury tells him to relax and hope that droid comes through. And I'm like, he has a name. But this is me saying it to the guy whose name I couldn't remember for the first season and a half, so I'll let this go. R2's already back outside the ship, and there's more of them gun dogs around. One of them catches up, and R2 hits all the emergency buttons by spurting oil, trying to poke his eyes out, sticks a sucker onto his head, attaches the other end to the ship, and then powers it up and drags the beast. I thought that was very clever. The beast explodes along with the ship in the distance, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's Skywalker's droid for sure. Team Bounty detects the explosion, decides to head over to investigate, and they see Windu's ship in the air and assume that he's the one on board, except it is just R2, and he doesn't fly past over where the Jedi are trapped. That leads the fire spray to shoot the ship more. That'll help. Keep going. And it makes me wonder, can R2 fly like Skywalker, because he would have spent a lot of time memorizing his flights and his maneuvers?
I think R2's reckless enough on his own anyway.
Oh, that's true. The Jedi think that R2's flying off and leaving them, not realizing he's being pursued by bounty hunters that he's been protecting them from the entire episode. The fire spray continues to pursue the Jedi fighter, and R2 desperately tries to get the signal out. Boba's on the guns, so that knocks out his communication, and R2 powers up the light speed rings and gets away just as Boba chooses the wrong one to shoot. As Boba sulks, Castus worries that the full force of the Jedi will be after them now, and Aura doesn't think so she's going to use the hostages to make sure Fury comes to them. At this point, do the hostages know who he is?
I don't know.
R2 arrives at the temple, and he's approving my theory more and more about having the personality mainly derived from Skywalker's influence. He tells droids to get out of his way, with more swear words, and then goes through them instead of around them. The other two are like, well, really? At Temple Command, we see Plo Koon, and there she is, Ahsoka! We found her! Along with other Jedi that are in a hollow call going over some plan, R2 busts in like the Kool-Aid Man and unceremoniously falls down the stairs. He immediately starts a fight with another droid trying to get to the console, and Ahsoka, recognizing R2, immediately goes over and explains what's going on. So R2 uploads the video file showing the state of the Skywalker. R2 uploads the video file showing the state of Skywalker and the surrounding ship. Plo Koon wastes no time. I really enjoy this, because if it was Obi-Wan, they would have had a 20-minute debate whether they should go. Plo Koon, solid dude. Windu and Skywalker are stuck, so they might as well bring the viewer up to speed and explain the helmet. Nick Fury explains that it was Jango's, and Skywalker recognizes his name as the clone template. I didn't know how far that name had spread, so...
Yeah, I was actually amazed that Windu knew that Boba existed, much less knew his name, and he probably never would have if he hadn't read this kind of retconned Obi-Wan report that they stuck in, but I kind of had to say that, otherwise it wouldn't make sense how Mace knew this, because he was remarkably well informed about who he was, so they had to invent this report that Obi-Wan made up.
Yeah, because Obi-Wan was the only one to really meet and speak to Boba when he was at the facility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that part.
So, I mean, I'll accept that connection from the writing aspect, but like otherwise, Mace would he'd been like, who's this stupid kid trying to kill me?
Fury explains the whole history that he somehow knows, just as the ship starts to explode. He then tells Skywalker that his droid has failed, but Skywalker's like, no. Just then, 3 drop ships fly in to prove Space Fury wrong. One comes up to the bridge, and R2's over the moon that they're still there. He does another little dance. I get right excited.
They've been lying there for 36 hours.
Ahsoka and Plo Koon force the ship to be steady, while Wolf and another trooper hop over to rescue the 2 Jedi. R2 is finally being given recognition for being the key to Skywalker's success, because it's true. A lot of Skywalker's miracle rescues would be fails without this guy.
R2 is the real hero of the entire Star Wars series.
It's true. I have thoughts on that in a bit. Everybody else is calling him R2, and Space Fury calls him Droid when he comes over, when orders him to come over. So close, Space Fury.
The
so
prick
close.
to the end.
He tells him, good job. And Skywalker pretty much tells us that this is the highest level of praise that he's ever seen Mace Windu give anyone, ever.
That's all you're getting.
Except for maybe Dogzilla, who's a good boy. May he rest in peace. I'm still sad about that. In closing, people say that Star Wars is the story of Luke or Ahsoka, but it really seems like the story of R2. Because if you think about it, he's the only character that is steadfast throughout. Because do we see him in episodes 7, 8, and 9? Is he still around?
Yeah, remember he was asleep through episode 7, and then BB-8 rolled up to him. But R2 is once again holding a key, critical piece of information to make it all lock in. So, you know, he's, and as far as the main movies go, it's R2 all the way.
Yeah, so R2, Star Wars is really the story of R2.
Yeah, it's just the story of a plucky droid. That'll be the same if my stories ever take off at Grizzo. It'll just be the central part of it. Who's the real hero? It's... Did I rip off R2 with Grizzo? Maybe I did. But
Nah.
Steal from the best.
Yeah. My prediction was close, I guess, except for everything besides R2. I had one thought that I wanted to bring up with you, and my theory kind of changed throughout, but I had a theory that, are there ever such things as Force-sensitive droids?
Well, there's only one that springs to mind, and that was sort of a one-off story back in the old Dark Horse legend tales, and that was and I'm not even making this up, it was the tale of Skippy the Jedi droid. And Skippy was the droid R5 who blew his stack at episode 4, and that caused the Uncle Owen to buy R2 instead of him, because the idea being that Skippy saw the future in the Force, and that if they didn't buy the blue droid, the universe was doomed. So he blew his own motivator to sabotage himself so they'd take R2 and thus save the universe. Just one of those fun little what ifs. Other than that, I don't think so. But yeah, it's Skippy. I mean, I think we do see Red 5 again in the Mandalorian series, I think. So he does turn back up, but or at least pretty sure it's him. But yeah, that's the only example I can think of. That comic stuck with me. That's from the back of the 90s.
I would like to nominate R2. There's just something about him. He always seems to be in the right place at the right time. He's just a little too slippery for a normal droid. I know it's also because he has a lot more experience on the ground due to the lack of wipes versus the other droids. which seems like an oversight, but whatever.
The longer you go without wiping your droid, the more eccentric they get too. I use the same idea with Crank in our Star Wars campaign. And R2, we first meet him in Naboo, like 20 years ago, and then he doesn't get wiped through to the end of the saga. So I mean, by 60, 70, however many years, he's never been wiped. So R2's his own man for sure.
Yeah. I follow up that point with, I do think he is a sentient droid versus other droids because he needs therapy versus the other ones wouldn't know what to do with it. He'd actually could benefit from it. But that's basically my thoughts on episode 21. So rolling right into episode 22. Season 2, episode 22. There's no Batman style recap, so I'm feeling a little lost right now.
Did this episode actually have a title? I didn't see one on mine.
Lethal Trackdown is the official name of this episode. We start off in the fire spray, pretty much picking right up where we left off. Boba heads into the hostages and he gives Killian a drink of water and he lowers the gag and he starts talking to him. Killian knows he's not the same as the others, but as soon as he refers to him as a good soldier, Boba does not like being referred to this way. He is not a soldier. Aura joins him and takes over by just starting to beat Killian up, and I'm assuming the others too. Boba does not like this, and this is you touched on it last episode when we first saw him, but this is a ongoing theme for him that he does not like unnecessary violence and such.
I mean, when he's older, Boba's a very merciless bounty hunter, but he's not bloodthirsty. Like, he's not needlessly cruel because there's no money in it. He's just a fucking practical bounty hunter.
We go over to the temple where Skywalker 8 asks what Mace Windu, aka Space Fury, or less awesome Nick Fury, what he's going to do about Boba Fett, and Fury says nothing. He seems really dismissive as he says this too, like he's almost bored with the conversation. With that level of blasé is just obnoxious. It's not enlightened at all.
Yeah, it comes off as arrogant, where I know they're probably trying to go with the Jedi don't hold grudges and we're not going to seek revenge because it would only add to the pain of the galaxy. But yeah, he just seems like, I'm just going to keep reading my magazine. I don't care.
Yeah, Skywalker points out a very solid point to go after Boba is that he already took out an entire Jedi cruiser. Should we really just be letting this guy walk around? And he's like, we have a war to think about. But this is a significant hit to your war. You don't just have 1,000 of those Jedi cruisers kicking around.
Yeah.
Maybe he's worth looking into. Fury looks at going after him and getting him as revenge, but Skywalker's like, no, just arresting him, you freak. I don't want to go out and kill a kid. Just like, just arrest him and bring him in. That's called justice. Maybe you've heard of it? And I find myself agreeing with Skywalker, which means that Skywalker goes on to be Vader, but Mace Windu is somehow worse, like Umbridge. I don't know why, but except for Dogzilla episodes, I am not on Mace Windu's side at all.
No, I am often not really along with his line of thinking on a lot of things too.
Yeah. Just as Mace makes his case, Plo Koon comes in and tells them that they've heard from the bounty hunters and they have a problem. The holo message is the bounty hunters holding the hostages at gunpoint, and we learned that along with Killian and Pons, we have CT-411. Nope, wait, that turns out to be Pons. They still haven't named the third guy there.
Although they did use a 3-digit clone trooper number again as opposed to 4, so I guess that's must have not have been a one-off last time. They just do that. Okay. Maybe they do that for officers or something. Maybe the grunts get the 4 numbers or something. Not sure.
Maybe. While we're discussing Pons, he dies. So never mind. They try to get Boba to finish him off, but it's not him who does it. He refuses to do it, so Aura steps in and shoots. And Fury's like, alright, I'm gonna go take care of this. Now that there are hostages. That's the only difference. Fury's gonna go, but Plo Koon is like, that's not a good idea. Me and Ahsoka are gonna go, and you're gonna stay here and heal because you were just under some debris for the last couple of days. But oh yeah, I'm here for this Plo Soka setup. I'm so excited.
Plo Soka. How long you been sitting on that one?
I thought it up today.
Now, I've said this before, but I would watch the hell out of a buddy cop type show set in a Star Wars universe. I would definitely watch that.
100%, especially if it was these two,
Yeah.
or if it was that old detective that Ahsoka had to work with when she had to get her lightsaber back.
Yeah,
I would watch
yeah,
that.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Jedi Master Turtle. Boba's getting accosted by Aura on the fire spray for not pulling the trigger when she said to. And the hostages are exchanging a look because they are seeing that he's not all on board with what they're doing. Castus also isn't loving this plan, and he's like, I want off this ship, I want out. He is Marge Simpson, let me out, let me out, let me out. And they're gonna head to, I thought it was Florm, but it's Florum, which sounds a lot better than Florm. So they're heading for Florum to meet with an old friend who can take his place. And I was like, Cad Bang? Cad Bang, are we gonna see him?
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while.
Exactly. Plo Soka is in a ship and they're lowering into a well thing? What is that?
Oh, that's just a passage to the lower levels. These things are all over Coruscant. It's just one of the ways you get down to the sub-levels.
Oh, that whole thing is terrifying. It makes me not like how high you think actually everything is. If there's a big structural damage underneath, how many levels is everybody going to fall?
I don't know. That's the thing about Coruscant is what we see in shows like Andor and this. Like the ground is not the ground; it's miles down. It's crazy.
Yeah, you don't actually see land. It's like, what's actually down there? How many prehistoric levels do they have down there?
Exactly, it's fascinating. But yeah, the well is disconcerting. Just the sheer scale of it. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. We can move past my comment of insert Vinzer explaining this here. Flo explains to Soka that he knows the other bounty hunters in the holo message, and therefore the key to finding Boba is to look for his father's old associates. And they have to go into the Matrix. I'm just kidding. But it kind of looks like it as they're lowering into this. I was like, I feel like they're running away from the robotics.
The canceled Boba Fett video game was called 1313, which meant that was 1,313 levels down. So you get an idea of how far these things go down. They're crazy.
Oof. They're actually going into the underworld. Dun, dun, dun. That's definitely the energy they gave that. They land on a platform and they wave their way through customs, quite literally.
This is what kills me. They're in the underworld where it's supposed to be the criminal underbelly. Why the fuck are there customs agents to show your past to? This is supposed to be where all the criminals hide out. That made no sense to me. It was unnecessary for the episode.
Yep. Plo says that they must be cautious, so he has a big cloak and a hood, and Ahsoka gets a frickin' poncho.
I think that was a throwback to Kenobi and Luke, where he's like, this place can get a little rough. We must be cautious kind of thing. The whole Mos Eisley thing. The throwback.
While they're searching the underworld, we see Aura greeting Hondo on Florum, and by greet, I mean greet.
Yeah.
And then seeing the kid immediately panics and goes, that's not mine, right?
Yeah, I couldn't believe they said that. That was funny. That was surprisingly
Hondo.
adult for Clone Wars.
Hondo. Oh god, he is so good. I love this guy. And then my love is further grown for this guy because he has a tender moment with Boba and talking about how his father was an honorable man and just saying some really kind words to Boba.
Hondo scored some points with me here for the way he talked about Jango to Boba.
His handling of this entire episode has me on board with Hondo. Like, I enjoy the level of neutrality this guy manages to walk flawlessly.
Yeah.
This comment about his father being an honorable man gives Boba pause, considering his current company, and he keeps watching Aura just blow people away for no reason.
Yeah.
They head into the bar for a drink to talk business, and Castus decides to have the loudest holo call known to man over at the corner of the bar for a pickup. complains about Aura, and she's literally just watching this happen from a distance. And cuts back into the conversation just in time to stop Boba from engaging in underage drinking. Hondo brings up the Jedi cruiser, and as he's talking, Aura decides to listen on Castus's conversation, where he's like, I have information. Aura turns around and just is like, hold on 1 second. Blasts him mid-call before he can say any more. The bar stops for a second and then continues on its way, and Hondo's like, can somebody scrape him up anyways? Let's go. But Boba is the only one who is actually acknowledging that this just happened.
This is another little thing that drives me nuts plot-wise, and not just Star Wars, but anything, is where it makes sense, they follow the clues, they went where they're supposed to, and they find something out, but it's like, there's never any cross-confusion. Like, they could overhear one of 100 unrelated conversations, but they always overhear the one they need to hear. It's just a plot thing, I know, but it's just like, oh, I heard about a big score, and they could go off in a complete, wild goose chase in the real world, but, it's always, they overhear the exact conversation at the exact time.
Yeah. Speaking of hearing the exact conversation, in the underworld, Plo Soka lands on another platform, and Soka hopes that this fifth location proves like a charm, and Plo encourages subtlety. I immediately say, you've met Skywalker, right? And then he goes on to basically say the exact same thing.
I know they assigned Anakin a Padawan to kind of help him mature as a Jedi and stuff like that, but it just seems that Ahsoka should have stayed Plo Koon's apprentice because they work well together, they have mutual respect, but I don't know, that's just me.
Yeah. He tells her to just try to blend in, says a fully grown man to a preteen girl as they walk into a bounty hunter bar full of full-grown men and not teenage girls.
Yeah.
How is she supposed to blend? One of the dancers? Little young. They enter the place that is giving me Reflections flashbacks, and Plo goes to the bartender for information. The bartender scoffs at this a little bit, but Plo Koon sets him at ease with, he's never too busy for the citizens of the Republic. And I was like, smooth. I liked Plo Koon. And I thought that it was a really nice thing for him to say, because he's one of the few Jedi I'd actually believe it if I heard him say it.
Yeah, Plo Koon's, he's a solid dude. I like him.
Although he looks really menacing with the robe up, with the breathing mask, and then he's got the pincers. Like, he just looks really terrifying. He
looks like a Sith Lord, actually.
Yeah. Soka tries it Plo's way, and just as she tries to use the Force to listen around the room and eavesdrop on conversations, she's got two drunk guys arguing about who a girl's gonna go out with. Oh man, it's gonna be me.
See, they never hear that shit.
And then they suddenly hone in on a person talking about how his buddy was just murdered on Florum.
Did you say Florum? No, Florum!
Yeah, exactly. She continues to drop eaves as Castus's buddy continues about how Castus had information and that he was working with Aura Singh. Good thing that he decided to go to that one bar.
I guess the Force guided him or some bullshit like that.
Unfortunately, Ahsoka is about as subtle as Buffy is tracking Wentworth Miller in the last episode, because she's slowly backing up to hear better, and I'm like, why couldn't you just keep Force listening? Whatever.
He's doing a lot of eavesdropping for someone whose ears we've never once glimpsed.
Yeah, it's true. They grab her before she can leave, because they catch on to her as she's basically, like, at their table. And Plo comes to her defense, and the bartender's like, alright, let's try not to shoot everybody here. And Ahsoka grabs a handful of credits and goes, look at this! And then runs from the bar. And Plo starts to comment on her subtlety, and she's just like, hold up, did you get information? Because I'm pretty sure that you didn't. I did. And proceeds to tell him what she learned.
The credit thing was a brilliant move. It got them out of the situation. Nobody got hurt. It was the perfect distraction.
Yeah, that was a very... you know what? I'll put that one as a Skywalker move. I could totally see him also doing that. But yes, Plo, sit down, man. You're solid, but sit down. on Florum. I don't know why that word's getting weird for me to say.
Diagonally.
Aura is meeting with Hondo in his office, and she gets a message in her ear comm, because only bad guys have ear comms in the Star Wars universe. They see a Jedi ship incoming, and they're like, it's Space Fury. And Aura's like, all right, Hondo, are you in to help us out? And Hondo goes, nah, I'll not be joining, but don't worry, I won't be helping either.
I shall neither help nor hinder.
Hondo meets the Jedi ship at the landing pad, and it's very quiet on this pad. You notice that immediately. There's no one hustling and bustling around. There's nothing. And Hondo is using his best customer service voice. Plo's like, they're gonna ambush me when we go inside, right? And Hondo's like, oh, certainly.
Oh, yes.
He's like, oh yeah, they're waiting inside, but I don't know what they're gonna do once you go in there, so just heads up. Hondo goes on to explain that he's telling Plo this so that he knows, don't worry, I'm not a part of this plan at all. So he walks into the bar and he sits down to the table with Aura. Boba predictably comes up behind Plo with a blaster, and upset that this is not the Jedi he was looking for. Aura gives the command for Bosk to stand by to kill the hostages at her word, but Plo ain't even bothered. He shrugs and tells her that she's lost and she doesn't even know it yet. And Ahsoka surprises Aura from behind and cuts off her antenna. Ouch. Especially knowing now that that was probably part of her, like that might have had a nerve ending or two in there. What, species is she?
Aura Singh. Born 51 years before the Battle of Yavin. Species, Paladuvan. The interesting trivia here is, and this isn't a spoiler, because although I forgot about it until I just read it now, is that she was killed by Tobias Beckett, who was Woody Harrelson's character in the Solo movie. They just do a casual throwaway line in a bar. Says, "Oh, you're the guy that took out Aura Singh." So we do know that she died by Tobias Beckett's hand. Anyway. Interesting. Aura Singh, also known by the name Nashta, was a Force-sensitive female Paladuvan who I didn't know this, who left the Jedi Order to take up the life of a bounty hunter.
Interesting.
Operating prior to and during the Clone Wars, she was present at Tatooine, where she watched the Boonta Eve Classic. That's where she had the cameo in Episode 1 while young Anakin was racing. During this time, she became acquainted with the Weequay pirate Hondo Ohnaka. And there's a bunch of other stuff here. But yeah, there's some interesting backstory. I had no idea about the Jedi thing.
Yeah, that makes everything that she does here just put it in a different light, because she's very slippery. Once we see Aura's antenna being removed, we see Bosk talking to the hostages at the fire spray and say that he's not waiting around much longer, so their time is limited. Boba is still holding a blaster to Plo at the bar, and Ahsoka still has Aura at saber point. Ahsoka calls Boba a murderer, and Boba claims that all he wants is justice. Plo then drops the line, "We are justice." What are your thoughts on that line?
He's getting carried away with his dark cape. He thinks he's Batman. I know Plo meant it earnestly. He's a Jedi, and he believes in all that. So I think he meant it unironically, but it just comes off as, cornball.
Yeah, I didn't really like it. I had a problem with it because it seemed a little... there was a sense of righteousness in what he said. I don't know, maybe it's just the overarching attitude of the Jedi filter being put on that line. I almost would have believed it more if Obi-Wan had said that. I would have been like 100%. I think it's because that line doesn't sound like something Plo Koon would say. Because the only times we've really seen him being righteous or patronizing is when Ahsoka was saving the day and they're like, oh, good job. Like, thank you. But they didn't really do anything and they thought they did.
The Jedi believe their own hype. I mean, they've been doing this for 10,000 generations or whatever. So, they believe they're the institution. They buy their own hype.
Yeah. Especially if parents are willing to hand over their babies at the word of a robed man showing up randomly.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, no, me neither. Plo assures Boba that no one will be harmed if he comes quietly, and just as he's about to surrender, Aura urges him not to. She readies her boot bolts. What are boot
Oh
bullets?
yeah, it's similar to the knee rocket things. They're
Mhm.
like fucking mini rockets from the boot kind of thing. Bounty
Yeah.
hunter trick.
Just when they think they have Aura, there's a fight that goes off with Aura versus Plosoka, and it lasts all of 3 seconds. Boba slides a bomb in between them, and they jump as it goes off. Aura and Boba make for the exit, but Plo force grabs Boba, hauls him back, and as he calls to Aura for help, I pause because I wanted to think, can I predict whether she's going to stay and try to get him, or if she's going to run for it? And on one hand, I'm like, she has been kind of looking after him in her own twisted way, but how much does she value number one, right? Like herself. So I'm like, I think she's gonna run. Sure enough, she books it, leaving Boba behind, who's brokenhearted, and I really feel for this kid at this point. Plo tries to get the location out of him, but he's in shock. Aura's escaping, and she does your favorite Buffy move and kicks a poor swoop bike owner in the face. She takes off on said swoop bike, and Ahsoka follows closely behind. And just an interesting little note, because they decided to put it in here, so obviously it's significant, that Hondo's men takes an aim at Ahsoka, but Hondo just lowers his blaster and is like, no, we're staying out of this. Plo is leading Boba through the building of the ship, or the building, I'm not sure where they are, and they ask Hondo to get Boba to share where the hostages are. And Hondo's like, just tell us what we need to know. He just immediately acquiesces. It's so wild. Boba asks why he should, and Hondo tells him that it's what his father would have wanted, the honorable thing. Aura is on that swoop bike, but Ahsoka is closing in behind. Plo Koon is like, nope, she's telling you to head the wrong way, go to these alternate coordinates, and she listens immediately. And I think that if this situation was Skywalker, I don't think she would have turned as fast. She definitely listens to Plo Koon more readily than she does with Skywalker. Aura notices that she's turned away and heading back towards where the hostages actually are, and she frowns and goes and follows. At the fire spray, Bosk's like, time's up, and as he raises his blaster, Ahsoka goes, time's up, appears, and frees the hostages. Aura aims a shot at them, allowing her to board the fire spray and attempt to take off, but Ahsoka flits around like a flea and sabotages the fire spray, including a lightsaber fight through the front glass of the fire spray.
This drives me nuts. I mean, okay, I can understand the screen not being lightsaber proof, but it wasn't blaster proof. Like this is this stuff's supposed to be Durasteel. You're not supposed to be able to shoot out the windscreen of your fucking ship. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Aura crashes nearby and Ahsoka lands with the hostages, but she doesn't look triumphant that she managed to take down the fire spray. She seems sad that she thinks that maybe there's more loss of life. That's an interesting distinction from if she was, say, either with Skywalker this time or in the first season. So it showed that she's actually matured a lot over the last 2 seasons, even though she hasn't been around for us to see it. On Coruscant, Fury and Skywalker meet Boba and Plosoka on the landing pad. Boba recognizes that he did wrong, but in perfect child fashion uses the argument, you started it. I mean, he did, but still, my statement stands. So let's do a multiple choice question on Fury's response. A, I'm sorry. B, I wish I never killed your father. C, I would take it back if I could. Or D, get over it. If you pick D, unfortunately, you're correct.
It would have cost Mace nothing to say, even if he didn't mean it, to say, I'm sorry I killed your father. That's all he had to say. And, maybe Boba could have found at least some closure or, something. But Mace didn't do that. He's just like, tough shit.
Because that's the problem with Jedi, is that they think everybody thinks like them. Like, they think everybody's going to think like a frickin' Vulcan and just be like, oh, well, that's above us, or that's not the bigger picture. It's not the... No, some people are living in their small little pictures. They don't have time for the big picture. Their world is big enough as it is. And for Windu to completely disregard this child's feelings valid feelings. You killed his father in front of him and you admit it and you sleep well at night. There's something wrong with you, good sir.
Windu's the one that's lost the plot as far as being a Jedi. I mean, like I said, even if he didn't mean it, he had to look at this kid and go, this kid's messed up. If I'm cruel to him now, he's only going to continue on a path towards darkness and death and blood and all that. But if I do something to help heal him a bit, maybe his path will take a better trajectory and he'll help be a force for good. He just didn't do that. Like, Mace is the guy who lost the plot as far as being a Jedi. He's just an asshole.
I think the last true Jedi would be Yoda, but before that would be Qui-Gon. I just feel like he had more of the right idea about what Jedi should be, kind of thing.
Well, look at the way Qui-Gon spoke to Anakin when he was little. You know, he like encouraged him and stuff, and he was kind of like acting like a dad to him almost. And none of that from Ace. He's like, chopped your dad's head off, and I didn't even have to. What the fuck are you gonna do about it?
Yeah. And then it just ends.
Yeah, season just kind of slammed into a wall there at the end.
Yeah, he's just like, oh yeah, well, get over it. And I'm like, wait, what? Is that... Oh, okay.
This is why I keep saying season 2 of Book of Boba Fett should have just been about him hunting down Old Man Mace and finishing him off.
Yep. I honestly thought we were going to get that in this episode, and that's why we didn't get that in season 2 or in the season of Book of Boba Fett. But season 2, Rise of the Bounty Hunters. I know we've talked about it before, but I don't see it.
It's a little light on the bounty hunters, and they didn't do much rising.
The stakes felt higher with Mandalore and Happy Hogan being on charge of Mundo.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a season finale.
No, it didn't.
It feels like if we're being shown an army of Mandos that are growing in numbers on this Mundo, then they should have some part in the finale so it feels like it's kind of building to something. But the two stories, it's like, this is also about bounty hunters, and this is about bounty hunters. Why aren't they the same story?
Yeah, this is one of my problems I remember having with Clone Wars the first time around, is that it does all these war stories and stuff, and it has a lot of cool characters, but it skips around a lot, and you don't see Ahsoka for a long time. It feels very, I don't know what the word is, decentralized or something, which is why I prefer, I like Clone Wars, but I prefer Rebels, because Rebels is centric around a crew / family and what they're doing all the time. Whereas Clone Wars is just scattershot, okay, this week we're with Anakin doing this thing, this week we're with so, and that's fun and stuff, but it often felt like too many threads, flying all over the place, and there didn't seem a whole lot holding the central story wise. I don't know.
Yeah, because shows will have like an episodic nature to them, but over time they'll start to have an overarching plot. And that didn't really happen this time around. It just felt like another episode. It didn't even have Yoda or Cad Bang. I mean, it had Hondo. I almost called him Yondu. Whoops. Hondo Yondu. It did have Hondo, so there's that, I guess. But it didn't really feel like it built towards anything. There's no conclusion besides R2's a badass.
Without spoilers, I can tell you that by the time we get to the ending seasons of Clone Wars, they're really good. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Like, I feel like maybe, and I'm, obviously, this is just me spitballing here, because I have no idea what happens in this blank stretch. As I told you, I barely remember what happens in episode 3. I get the basics. There's some lava, someone loses some limbs, some babies are born. This whole thing is blank to me, so it's like, I don't know what happened. So maybe us seeing the Mandalorians on Mundo are building towards something that maybe comes to pass in a further season. Maybe it's a really slow build and it's a multi-seasonal build. Who knows? You will get resolution to a lot of things, and it is going to be a good journey. But I do agree that season 2 just, I don't know, the whole, like I said, I think it was misnamed, being called Rise of the Bounty Hunters, and it just sort of, like I said, just the curtain fell immediately, and then season was over. Yeah, it should have been like mishmash of the war stories, or like from the front lines, or something like that. Like, I just feel Like, it could have been named something different and it would have been more of a impact.
I think they should have been doing way more clone-centric stories. Even if they skipped around there, at least it would be something like Band of Brothers, where you go, spend an episode or two doing a cool mission with a few clones, then you go to another planet and another mission.
Or like a young flashback episode of Rex and Cody getting like their first missions together or something, or like working with the Jedi for the first time, their assigned Jedi. That would be cool, like that bonding experience. Those would be cool episodes. I'd really, if it's Clone Wars, I'd like to focus on the clone troopers. I totally agree. I feel like they are where the story is, because this is really their story.
Well, I can almost guarantee then by the time we finish Clone Wars, you're going to really want to watch Bad Batch, with ties directly in towards the last season of Clone Wars. I think you're going to want to watch that. And I want to watch it again.
Yeah. No, we'll definitely get there. Yeah, I don't know. The season's over, I guess.
I did like these 2 episodes, though. I mean,
yes.
Not for a finale, but I loved more Boba Fett stuff and had a lot of good characters and things like that. But so, I did like it.
I think if maybe they had split up the episodes of, I mean, I guess that they would have to rejig the story a little bit, but they could have used just another crashed ship. Skywalker crashes enough of them. They could have made it work where they had the bounty hunter, like, even just get away and have Boba get away like mid-season way through or something, and then when he comes back around, it's more of an impact because you're like, man, this guy's already messed up an entire Jedi cruiser. Whoa, he's back. Like, it would have had more of an impact instead of he's there, boop, he's still there. Yeah, it just felt like they kind of crammed his storyline, and they could have spread that out. Like, they could have had an earlier episode with just cadets walking past, with one of them like looking up and glaring at Windu. They could have him as a long-term plant instead of there the first day and immediately goes and bombs them, because then that also would have shown Boba's patience, and it would have made him even more menacing, the fact that he's been underneath Mace Windu's nose this entire time. So, I don't know. I feel like that they could have done a lot of things with it, and I don't think it would have really affected any of the other stories, because it's so random that you could just have him popping up in the background of just Mace Windu's appearances, because he's in it so seldomly, so it wouldn't really affect any of the other parts of the episode to just put him in the background. I like when stuff kind of goes together and you can kind of see. I guess I'm just spoiled by Doctor Who. Like, the Bad Wolf season is a perfect example of it. Like, it's showing you Bad Wolf throughout the entire thing, and then it shows you where that came from. And I guess I get spoiled by those little Easter eggs and those little sneaky things in. Because, I mean, this is early 2010, so yeah, I guess that would have been around then. That's all I have for that. And since we're only doing Star Wars tonight, I guess we'll close it out there. So let us know what you think about Andor. Come and talk to us. Comment on the posts where you see this happening. We would like to hear from you, because we like opinions other than our own, as long as they respect people.
And we will be back next week with a double shot of the Buffy Season 2 finale, and then we'll be ready to go to Season 3s of Clone Wars and Buffy. So we're getting somewhere.
Should I learn the slide whistle for Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
No! Oh, God.